everyone. Hi. I'm not gonna lie, I finished Assassin's Apprentice not even 5 minutes ago. I really cut it close there. It is what it is. Alright, so today I am so excited. We are going to do the first live show for the Realm of the Elderlings 2025 read-along that we are doing here on this channel for the entirety of the year. I am so excited, you guys. Oh my lord. I think I'm going to love this series. I think this is going to end up being a favorite fantasy series. And I know that that's really early to say this early on, but y'all, I had so much fun. I read Assassin's Apprentice in an entire day. Well, I pretty much listened to the audiobook exclusively, but still, I read through the entire book in a day. 435 pages in a day. I mean, I listened to the audiobook on like 3 times speed because I could. I was able to. But still, in a whole day, I finished it. Wowzers! I have not read an entire book in one day in a long time. And that just tells you how invested I was in this one. Alright, so we'll give everybody a couple minutes to join in, but for those of you that are joining this live show and you're like, what's going on here? We are reading the entirety of Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings world books, basically, over the course of 2025. And in the month of January, the idea was to read 2 books, which are the first one being the novella that kind of sets up the world and gives us kind of some political background and magical background a little bit of what we see in the Realm of the Elderlings, which this novella is The Wilful Princess and the Piebald Prince. It has 2 kind of short stories that go together that basically we'll talk about here in a little bit. And then the first book in the first series of the Realm of the Elderlings, we were also to read Assassin's Apprentice. This is the first book in the Farseer trilogy, which is the first of, I think, 4 or 5 trilogies that are, or series that are involved in this world. They all interconnect, and there is a very, very established way of reading them in terms of like the order of which series to read first, which books to read, you know, then the novellas that kind of come in between. So these were the 2 things we decided we were going to read in January. We will be in the month of February going through 2 more books. We have another novella and the second book in the Farseer trilogy. So if you would like to join in on this, please feel free to. We're not too far ahead to where you can't catch up if you haven't already. But yeah, so let's, I guess, just go ahead and get into some of my thoughts. So for both books, I ended up rating them both 5 stars. Let me pull up my Caw Pile notes because they do have slightly different, like, finalized star ratings, like with Caw Pile. So let's see, The Wilful Princess and the Piebald Prince got a 9.29, and Assassin's Apprentice got a 9 flat. So I did enjoy The Wilful Princess a little bit more than I did Assassin's Apprentice, but mostly that was because I think of the brevity of, obviously, this, like, I was able to keep my attention with it the entire time, whereas I did dip off a little bit at one point here and there with some more lull points in this book, but still enjoyed both immensely, loved them both. Both of them ended up getting a 5 star. So let's go into The Wilful Princess and the Piebald Prince. So this novella basically goes into, like I said, the background politically and a little bit magic-wise as to what is going on in this world that we live in this world. And essentially, this in particular, they don't say how long before the events of the Farseer trilogy it happens, but it's long, long, long before the events of what happens in the Farseer trilogy. We learn about, through our narrator, this princess that basically is deemed the Wilful Princess. She is, you know, I think even her name is like Wilful, or no, Princess Caution. Yeah, her name was Caution. The narrator is a woman who literally grew up with Princess Caution from birth. Her mother was Caution's wet nurse. Hi, Bubba. Oscar wants to join in on the party. So she was Caution's wet nurse, and essentially her daughter grew up with her, with Princess Caution, her entire life. Like, they were best friends. At one point, they may have been lovers, or they were lovers, it was deemed. And at the very least, they were basically like sisters to a certain extent too. Like, they were so very close. They had done everything together. You never saw them without each other, kind of thing. And the first part of the story, the first story about the Wilful Princess, is literally the narrator talking about from birth, essentially, growing up and becoming the princess's, like, second-hand woman, her handmaiden, you know, basically being the one that she would go to for everything, and kind of, like, worming her way in some ways into the political system that there is within this world. Basically getting it to a point where the narrator would be able to have a decent life working for the princess, being with the princess, being the princess's wet nurse, you know, herself, all these things, because her mom had basically been like, you need to get yourself in line with this. I've set up your life for you in this way. This is what you need to do. And it turns out that the princess then gets pregnant by this young man that works in the stables. And the young man that works in the stables, she is, like, in love with the princess. The princess is absolutely besotted with him. They become very close. There's reasons as to basically why, but you find out that the stable boy has what's called the wit. And this is the magic that's kind of involved in this world that we learn a lot more about going into the Farseer trilogy with our main character. But the wit essentially is this magical ability of, like, being able to not only, like, read the minds and thoughts of animals, but also, like, connect with them on a very, very subatomic level at times, where it's like you can literally not only view through the eyes of the animal what they see, but you can even, like, kind of communicate with them, control them in a sense. Like, the way that they describe it is it's very, like, mental in terms of, like, the way that the magic is done, but it's very interesting. Like, it's more than just being, like, an animal whisperer of sorts. Like, there's way more involved than that, and, like, it's like a certain kinship with animals that very few people in this world have. So the stable boy has this ability, and it's kind of looked at not necessarily poorly in this world at the time of this coupling that happens, but it's something that, like, not a lot of people have. There's not a lot of, like, understanding of it. You know, people are kind of like, I don't know about that. You know, it could be kind of far-fetched, you know, whatever it is. But when the princess gets pregnant and it's found out that the father is the stable boy, there's a huge uproar regarding it. The princess's father, like, sends the boy away. There's, like, a lot of things that basically happen that separate, that essentially get the two separated, and they think that, you know, each other had something to do with it. But anyway, the princess ends up, you know, heartbroken over the whole thing, but she does end up giving birth to their son, who they call the Piebald Prince, because when the child is born, they have these very distinct, like, blood red markings all over them. And the boys are deciding that they're going to wrestle and play at this time, which is not necessarily what I wanted them to do, but they're going to do what they're going to do. So anyway, he has these, like, blood red, like, birthmarks all over his body. And they're like splotches, so that he kind of looks like a piebald horse. And so they call him the Piebald Prince. Well, around the time that the princess gets pregnant, the narrator ends up getting herself pregnant because mom tells her, hey, if you get pregnant around the same time, you know, you'll be able to have your milk come in when the princess is able to, you know, have birth, so you'll be of more use to her, and you can take care of, you know, both your kid and her kid, just like I took care of both you and her when I was her wet nurse, kind of thing. So mom's been basically scheming this whole time to be able to get her daughter to be involved in the castle and all these things. So mom's a bit of a schemer. Not a huge fan of that. Really a huge fan of her. I think that there could have been other things that this girl could have done that would have been she would have been way better off. But that's neither here nor there. That's my own personal opinion. So anyway, fast forward to the birth of both of their children. Basically what happens is the narrator then ends up becoming the wet nurse of both her child and the princess's child. And unfortunately, after, some things that happen, the princess then dies. And so the Piebald prince, who we know as, what is his name? I forget. Because there's another boy that comes in this story that is a different name. They call him Charger. They call the Piebald prince, they called him Charger, and he's Charger Farseer. So this is like the Farse, like we're talking the Farseer lineage, like this is like long ago. So the second part of the story is about the Piebald prince, and it basically is the narrator then talking about how not only her son, but Charger, how they grew up together, all these things, how she kind of doesn't really like get her son super involved with Charger's life, but she does have a lot of influence in Charger's life because Charger essentially gets really attached to our narrator. She is like, basically she's the mother that he did not end up getting to have, because his mother passed away when he was very young. And so like you see throughout the story the way in which Charger grows up. He's definitely outcasted a lot because at this time after his birth, people that have the witch are seen as evil, and it's like witchcraft and all these things. And so especially after the princess got pregnant by someone with the wit, there is this concern that the royal line is now basically like tainted. And so because of that, Charger is, even though he is in line to be king, there's a lot of people as he grows up that try to take over his lineage, one of which being one of his cousins, Canny Farseer. And Canny is essentially trying to vie for the throne. He thinks that he's a better fit because he doesn't have this power, because he's untainted, yada, 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 all these things. And this whole world is basically comprised of what are called the duchies. There are 6 duchies, like 6 different kingdoms that all make up this world. And essentially what happens is that there is concern that if one kingdom has more power than the other, it's going to cause this great imbalance with all the duchies. And then, essentially, like I said, there's this rivalry between Charger and Canny, and it kind of goes on from there. And we essentially look at the rise of Charger as he becomes king, and then ultimately the fall of him as he is ridiculed for his upbringing, his looks, his blood, all these things, and how he ends up falling out of grace with the kingdom and the people that are supposed to be his loyal subjects. And essentially, he is then murdered. When he is an adult, he is murdered by his cousin and various other people, kind of accidentally, but they decide that they're gonna just make it a whole thing where, like, yeah, he was killed. And now Canny's gonna be the king. So, in a nutshell, that's basically what this is all entailing, is it tells of not only the political system of the world and how the Farseers are the ones that essentially are involved in the political system of it, how they're the ruling family that is involved in this particular duchy of the kingdoms, and how essentially the wit is viewed within this world, how it is viewed as bad, as tainted, as, evil, all these things, and all because a young woman decided to fall in love with a man who had the wit and ended up having his child, and how that was so blasphemous when it came to the line of succession that they basically killed him to get rid of the bad blood, if you will. And I really enjoyed this. I, obviously, with a novella, flew through this very quickly. I did read it over 2 days. Like, I read the first part in one day, and then I read the second part the next day. But I really liked this. I thought that this was a very interesting and very kind of succinct way of really figuring out what this world kind of is about and understanding the complexities of the world in terms of like the structure and the different duchies and all that. They weren't really heavily got into the duchies in this one. They're more so brought up in Assassin's Apprentice, but it was definitely something that I found to be very well done for a prequel novella. I think that a lot of times the problem that fantasy authors will have with prequels of any kind is either they're so drawn out, like they're either large novels or large series of any kind, or, you know, even like trilogies with big books, right? That it becomes so bogged down in a lot of the technicalities, and there's not really like a lot in terms of understanding, okay, what's the main point that we're supposed to know going into this large world of things? What is it that we're supposed to absolutely know going into this huge world of magic and politics and all these things? And I love how this just kind of wrapped everything up in a very succinct way with really just what the real catalyst of everything was. Like, they didn't go so far back to the first Farseer or anything like that, because it wasn't necessary. They didn't talk about it very much because it wasn't necessary. What was necessary was learning about Princess Caution, her relationship with not only our narrator, but her relationship that developed with the stable boy that had the wit, and then how later on that child, when he grows up, how he not only deals with discrimination and prejudice and all kinds of like backlash because of his background, all these things, but how that child actually grew up and was murdered basically for the fact that he had this ability, and that people didn't like that, and people didn't want him to have it, and they thought it was bad, and that it would cause all kinds of upset with the lineage and the succession and all these things. And it was also very neatly wrapped up with a bow that I just was so happy with it. And I really liked too how the narrator also several times throughout this is like, you know, I'm having to say this truthfully because the narrator talks about how her son does not want the story of what happened to his best friend to be fabricated, because there's so many times in history that people will spin tales of what happened, and none of it's true, right? History is written by the winners. That's something we've learned throughout the course of history. But it's super important for the narrator to write down this story absolutely correctly by how it really happened, because there's so many people, and they say this in the book, how so many people will take a story and they will spin it every which way and come up with everything in the book as to why something happened or how something happened, and none of it's true. And the people who actually know the truth are not going to tell the truth, because if they did, it would paint them either in a bad light, or it would reveal something that was not supposed to be revealed, or anything like that. And so I really, really love how not only was this so candid in terms of giving the real story of what happened to these characters, but that the narrator themselves even was like, listen, I have to tell this the way it was, because if I do anything else, it's not living up to what I have set out for myself and what I have set out to do in this world, kind of thing. And I just loved it. I thought this was so well done. And for being so small, like how much of an impact this makes on the series, like it was just so beautifully well done, and something that is very hard, I think, for a lot of fantasy writers to be able to do. And I think Robin Hobb accomplished it and just blew it out of the water. Like, it was amazing how this story was, and it was heartbreaking and gripping, and oh my gosh, all the feelings, like seriously, every single feeling that you could have felt in this one. Amazing. Okay, so that's basically all of my thoughts going into The Wilful Princess and the Piebald Prince. Let me know what you guys had thought if you're catching the replay. If you joined in late, feel free to let me know anytime, you know, what it is that you felt about these books. But I'm going to move on to my thoughts on Assassin's Apprentice. So, Assassin's Apprentice, sorry, my nose is really runny all of a sudden. Stop. Okay. So Assassin's Apprentice, the first book in the Farseer trilogy, following one of our main characters in this world named Fitz. Now, initially, he doesn't have a name. He doesn't get the name, like, from his parents or anything. What we learn about him from the beginning is that his mom basically, like, either died or just basically abandoned him when he was a baby, and dad is not in the picture. Nobody knew who his dad was for the longest time, except for the man that we see at the very beginning, who drops him off at this guy's place. So, give a little background. So, what happens at the very beginning of this is that there is a man named Bratchet. Is that how you pronounce his name? I don't remember. Burrich. Bratchet, where did I get that? Burrich. Burrich is a man who was a animal handler of sorts for one of the princes in the realm of this in this kingdom, and he's a farseer. The prince was named Chivalry Farseer. That's our main character's father. Well, Chivalry basically stepped down on his wife, as a lot of princes and kings do, and he got a woman pregnant, and that child ended up being what we know as our character Fitz, but they don't really give him a name. What happens is Chivalry basically drops him off at some random guy's house and is like, hey, you take care of this kid. I want nothing to do with it. Maybe I'll pick him up when he's older, maybe not. Probably not. So then fast forward to when our main character is 6 years old. This man that he was dropped off to is like, I'm done with you. I don't understand you. I don't like you. I'm dropping you off at your father's animal handler slash best friend because I can't handle you. And so when he does, he tells Burrich basically that this is Chivalry's son, and Chivalry wants nothing to do with him. Chivalry's doing his own thing, all these things. And Burrich had basically not spoken to Chivalry for many years because he kind of was going and doing his own thing and kind of left Burrich in the dust. But Burrich decides that he's going to raise this kid that they basically name Fitz. That's what Burrich calls him, is Fitz. And that's what he goes by. So this story takes place from the time that Fitz is about 6 years old, and it's a recounting of the time from when he's 6, and he has these memories of what happened to him leading up to when he is a young adult. This is all written from Fitz's perspective as a much older man, and you learn that basically by the end of this that's the case. But also, like, one of the things that's been told to me many times is that the Fitz and the Fool series, which is a series that we will read much later on in the year, is basically when Fitz is an old man. So we're going to see him from his entire life, from when he's 6 all the way up to when he dies. And that's something that I've been told, and whatever. So anyway, what happens then is that Fitz basically grows up with Burrich. They go to the kingdom of Buckkeep, which is basically like the main kingdom of this world, and he ends up figuring out, who his family is. He meets his uncles, Verity and something. I have my notes here. Hold on one second. One of his uncles is pretty chill, pretty cool, kind of whiny, but then his other uncle is like a bit of a douchebag. So, Regal, that's his name. So essentially, what we learn is, and then there's his grandfather, who is named Shrewd. Yes, his grandpa Shrewd, because he's a shrewd man. Yeah, the names of this are pretty interesting. So anyway, what happens then is after he reaches Buckkeep, he meets his family, meets his uncles, who are like, this is Chivalry's kid, like, he doesn't need to, like, do anything. He's not really able to be king or anything, so what do we do with him? And Shrewd is like, well, you know what? Let's make him an assassin. Let's get him through assassin apprenticing, and we'll use him to our advantage, because if Chivalry ends up, becoming king, he could be a really good asset if he does end up becoming king. But then if he ends up working for one of you, Verity or Regal, he could be an asset to you as well. He could be a messenger. He could be a personal assassin. He can, do all these things. So they decide to let him go through all of that, even though Regal is very much kind of against it. Verity's kind of more like, okay, Dad, sure, like, that's fine, whatever, like, as long as he's not really gonna be king, like, that's all I care about. Regal's very much, though, like, no, I don't want anything to do with this kid. He doesn't belong here, all this stuff. So basically, we learn then over the course of Fitz's life how the 6 duchies go, like, how they are, and when he gets older and he's gone through his apprenticeship, his uncle Verity decides to then wage war on what are called the Red Ship Raiders. They are from this place called the Out Islands. They're basically like a bunch of bad guys to Prince Verity. They are the ones that they're basically attacking the shores of the kingdom, and they're stealing people and kidnapping people, and turning them into what are called forged ones. They're basically like the way I can only describe them is like they're very zombie-like. They have no emotions, no memories, no souls. And so these red ship raiders are basically stealing like citizens and turning them into these forged ones for some purpose, probably to be used as like an army of some kind. And so Verity basically enlists Fitz to help him figure out how to stop and get rid of the red ship raiders and destroy them, and either save these people or at the very least stop more people from being kidnapped. But then you have Prince Regal, the other uncle, who wants nothing to do with Fitz and wants nothing to do with whatever it is that's going on. He just wants everything for himself. He decides that he wants to make things his own, but that is threatening the livelihood of everybody and is possibly going to destroy the entirety of the Six Duchies. So, obviously, Fitz has to figure out how to stop his uncle, which is not easy, considering that Shrewd is not really being of much help in all of that. So, yeah. Basically, this is, like... I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, at some point in the series, too, there is a point where Fitz ends up going to learn what is called the skill, which is another type of magic that is also very mental, and it's something that, I don't want to spoil too much going into this, but it is something that we learn that another person in this book and in this series is capable of doing and has been hiding almost the entire time. And it could very well be the turning point of, like, everything if Fitz is able to use it. Let's see. So basically, yeah, he's being roped into two different aspects of saving the kingdom. One by an uncle that wants to actually save the kingdom from these people that are stealing citizens, and from another uncle that wants to literally just destroy everything for his own purpose, and he wants to start from scratch. So this was really good. I will say I feel like I said, did dip a couple times throughout the book. There were some lull points that like I didn't really like get as much info out of that I would have liked to, but I still loved this. I will say there's a trigger warning for animal death that I was not prepared for. And I cried. I'm not even going to say I almost cried. I cried because it was very, very sudden and a little triggering, which I was surprised by because I don't feel like I get triggered by very much anymore from books. But when it comes to animals, that always gets me. It always gets me when it's animals. I probably because I love my boy so much, and it involved a dog, and I was just like, no. But this was really good. Like, it was so very atmospheric. Like, I feel like that this world is going to be very atmospheric, and I'm going to feel very engrossed in this world every time I get into these books, because it's very easy to picture this world for some reason for me, and I can like feel I can like hear the sounds of the city. I can feel like the sea, like the breeze of the sea when it comes in some of the city parts. I can't explain it. Like, it's one of those very atmospheric books that I was like, I am in this. I am in the story. I'm watching everything. Obviously, from the fact that we start off with Fitz at 6 years old, I'm immediately like, with children characters, I am like, we must protect you at all costs. And so I was immediately latched onto Fitz for dear life. And so everything that this poor man went through growing up, I felt so hard. Like, I felt like I was a mom watching this poor child go through these terrible things, and I just wanted to protect them and save them from it, and I couldn't, and it was so upsetting. But I will say there were some really sweet moments with this, especially when he's a kid. There's like the whole set of scenes where he's playing with some of the town kids, and it's very sweet. and playing with his dog Nosy, and just being a kid was so sweet to see. And then there are times where this is so heartbreaking, like when he's learning how to use the skill, he's basically being tortured when he's going through that training, and it's very heartbreaking. And everybody kind of acts like he's not really there when he's standing right in the same room and being talked about by other people. Like, hello, like, he may be a man of few words, but he's still there, he's still listening and cognizant of what you're saying, and you don't have to talk about him like he's not there. It's just, I don't know what it was about this. This just felt not necessarily like cozy per se, but the book itself just felt so atmospheric that I felt like I lived through some of the stuff that was in this. And I don't know if that is something that anybody else felt when listening, like reading this. I mean, it probably had a lot to do with the fact that I was listening to the audiobook almost exclusively and keeping track in the physical book. But I just felt like I was living in this world and living and watching Fitz, as like a little angel on his shoulder or something like that. And I mean, if I was an angel on his shoulder, I'd be definitely getting him away from a lot of other situations that he got himself involved into, but that's neither here nor there. But something about this just, like, it not only hit, but it was very satisfying. And I think it's just one of those things where, like, I had some high expectations, or maybe not even high expectations, but I had some hopes when it came to this, that I was so happy when it exceeded, like, more so than anything else I've read so far in a while. Like, I'll have hopes for books, and, like, they'll exceed them, and I'll be really happy, but this brought it to another level. It was almost, like, ethereal, the feeling that I got from reading this book. And when I finished it, it was like, wow. And I love, too, there's a point at the end in the epilogue where like I said, it very much tells you, like, this is, like, a story that is completely being recounted by Fitz. And at the very end of the epilogue, there's, like, a point where it's like he's an old man and he's writing this whole story down. It had very much a Lord of the Rings feel to it. Like, when Bilbo's writing the story of the Hobbit, there and back again. Like, it had that kind of a feel to it in the epilogue, and I absolutely loved it. And I love that call back to Tolkien, because he is kind of the reason why we have so many great high fantasy stories anymore. Well, I mean, in general, truthfully, but George R.R. Martin is inspired by him. Robin Hobb, I know for a fact, was inspired by him in some ways. If you look at the way that the story was constructed and how, like, just beautiful the writing is, and the way that the world is expressed, and how the seemingly mundane things feel so magical in this world, is very much reminiscent to me of Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. I don't know. I think I'm in love. I think I'm in love with this book. I think I'm in love with Robin Hobb's writing in general. I think I may be in love with the realm of the Elderling. And that's 2 books in. We still have a whole heck of a lot to go, and I have heard so many people say that it is so easy to get sucked into, and it's going to break your heart in so many ways, over and over and over again. And I'm not ready. I'm not ready for that. I'm terrified of that, truthfully. I'm more terrified of that than I was when I read The Poppy War. I was pretty terrified of having my heart broken so many times when it came to The Poppy War. Okay, let me say, I am so mad that a couple years ago I missed out on the first round of this going around on BookTube when, like, Becca and the Books and the Catch Up Book Club were reading these. I think I would have had a great time reading these back then. And honestly, that was how I started hearing about this series, and when I started collecting this series in the world, you know, all these books in the world, was around that time, and I never got a chance to read them. I'm so mad at myself that I didn't get to do it then, but I'm so grateful that I get to start this now, and I'm seeing how much I enjoy it. Sorry, my nose is really stuffy all of a sudden. Oh my gosh, like, I can't with this. Like, I'm so happy that I read these. I'm so happy that I decided to pick up this series in this world for 2025. Because I guess I didn't really expect to fall in love with it as much as I did so far. And the fact that I am so in love with it right now makes my heart so happy. Like, I don't know if I've been this in love with a world and a series of this magnitude in a long time. Like, I've loved books. I've fallen in love with books, don't get me wrong, and I've fallen in love with worlds over the last few years, don't get me wrong. But the ethereal and almost ecstasy feeling that, or ecstatic feeling that I get, like, it feels like I'm coming off of a high reading these, and in a very good way. Like, I'm coming off of a high that is blissful, that is beautiful, that is incandescent. Like, it's absolutely amazing what these books have done to me in a very short amount of time. Hi, Hillary! Oh my gosh, you're coming in while I'm, like, just geeking out. Oh my lord. And you're coming in at the very end of, like, my spiel on these books. I'm so sad for you, but there'll be a replay you can go watch. But, yeah, I loved these. I loved these so much. I cannot wait to read the rest of this world and read it with you guys this year. I think it's going to be a fun time. We're going to cry, we're going to laugh, we're going to have a good time. But I'm just excited to be able to explore this series with you guys. I loved doing it with N.K. Jemisin in 2022 or 2023. I loved doing it with The Witcher in 2024. Now let's do it with The Realm of the Elderlings in 2025. Who's with me? Who's joining? I feel like I could read these over and over until the end of my days. Oh, okay. I'm so glad you've also read these, Hillary. Then you'll know, like, okay. I'm glad that you've read these already because my heart. My heart. So, anyway, that's basically everything I had to say on both of these. So yeah, just a quick recap. Ended up both books 5 stars. The Wilful Princess was slightly higher with like a 9.29, where Assassin's Apprentice was a 9 out of 10 with Claw Pile. But still 5-star reads. Absolutely love them. Super excited to see where we go further with the Farseer trilogy specifically, because there was some pretty intense things going on there at the end. That, like, the whole wedding thing, holy moly, like, that felt like the Red Wedding all over again from Game of Thrones. If you know, you know. Like, that, it seriously felt like the Red Wedding almost all over again. And I was like, ah, holy crap. So, wow. Wow. Just wow. And, you know, it's interesting. I think this would be a series I would definitely go back and reread. Like, if for nothing else, then to feel the feeling I'm feeling now. Like, that blissful, happy feeling, I would want to reread this again just to get that feeling. And it's not even like a cozy feeling. It's just feeling happy. Yeah. Just feeling happy. I love it. I'll take it. I'm good with it. Alright. So, now, what we're going to do is I'm just going to quickly go over what we're going to be going into with next month. So, this month. But first, I need to blow my nose because it is being so difficult right now. My nose wants to run and it's stuffy and I hate it. So give me 1 second and take a quick break, and then we'll go over what to do when it comes to February's reads for the Realm of the Elderling. Be right back. Okay, there we go. Alright, so now let's go into what we're going to be doing for February. So February, we're also going to be reading 2 books. One is a short story, and the other is an actual novel. I don't have the novel in here with me because it is somewhere upstairs that I have to find. And I don't have the short story because it's a Kindle. It's a Kindle thing. But yeah, so in February, we are going to be reading the short story, Words Like Coins. This is, I believe, a 40-page short story. So this is like a really fast read. And I don't really know what the synopsis off the top of my head is. So let me go ahead and actually look that up so I can give you guys an idea of what it's going to be about. I know that on Amazon currently, the Kindle version is like $3, something like that. And like I said, it's 40-ish pages, I think I want to say. Oops, Words Like Coins, that's what I want. It's very, very short. So it shouldn't take like I would do this like in an afternoon kind of thing. It's 34 pages. Okay. So basically, according to Goodreads, it says it's a 10,000 word tale featuring 5 illustrations by Tom Kidd. Marifin, a failed hedge witch's apprentice who is married to find security, finds that threatened by a severe drought and the appearance of a pregnant female Pexy. That doesn't make any sense. Let me see about the Amazon one. Yeah, it's $2.99 on Kindle. It's 37 pages print. Okay, it's the same description. A failed hedge witch's apprentice who is married to find security finds that threatened by a severe drought and the appearance of a pregnant female pixie. Something happens, I'm sure. But yeah, so there's that. That's a short story we're gonna read. I don't know what exactly the point of this story is, other than like it's supposed to be a part of the Farseer world that is recommended to be read between books 1 and 2 of the Farseer trilogy. I don't know why. I guess we'll find out what that point is. But then let me go ahead and look up the synopsis that is given for Royal Assassin, which that is the second book in the Farseer trilogy. So we're going to do Words Like Coins first, which is going to be the short story, and then the second novel we're going to get into is Royal Assassin, the second book in the Farseer trilogy. So, the synopsis says, Fitz has survived his first hazardous mission as a king's assassin, but is left little more than a cripple because he got really, really damaged in the battles. Battered and bitter, he vows to abandon his oath to King Shrewd, his grandfather, remaining in the distant mountains. But love and events of terrible urgency draw him back to the court at Buckkeep and into the deadly intrigues of the royal family. Renewing their vicious attacks on the coast, the Red Ship Raiders leave burned-out villages and demented victims in their wake. The kingdom is also under assault from within, as treachery threatens the throne of the ailing king. In this time of great danger, the fate of the kingdom may rest in Fitz's hands, and his role in its salvation may require the ultimate sacrifice. So, pretty much it looks like continuing on from where we were previously, seeing more of Fitz's adult life, mostly in terms of, like, that's his main goal, right, is going to be saving the kingdom. If somebody's going to do it, maybe Fitz is the one for it. I mean, truthfully, you got one king that is just throwing his grandson into the middle of nothing to be able to go fight and do his bidding. You have one uncle who can't keep things in line and can't keep, these Red Ship Raiders from coming in and stealing people, so he needs to help save the kingdom that way. And then you got another uncle that is looking to, tear things apart from the inside, so he's got to stop that uncle and save the kingdom that way. Good Lord, this poor boy. Like I said, precious cinnamon roll, I need to protect at all costs. Like, my poor boy. Anyway, that's basically what we're going to do. So February, we're going to read Words Like Coins short story, and then read Royal Assassin for the month of February. I do not know right now what day the live show will be. I would like to say tentatively it would be March 8th, but I have to double check with stuff for, like, school and everything. My spring break it starts March 21st. So I don't want to push it out that far, but I do want to, like, try to do something during my spring break that I'm going to have off. So yeah, I will let you guys know for sure when the live show for these two will be. Like I said, tentatively, I'm thinking March 8th. But we'll see how that goes depending on things for school and everything, because I'm still in the middle of, like, all kinds of different stuff. And especially when it comes to March, I've got some assignments that I need to get done. And I have some meetings I have to be a part of in order to get some assignments done. So we'll see. But anyway, if you catch the replay, let me know which one of these you enjoyed. If you enjoyed both of them, what your ratings were of them, what did you like about them. I am so happy that we decided to do this. Like, I can't gush enough about how much I enjoyed this. But yeah, so anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed my little spiel of this and my thoughts on these books. Let me know if you had any thoughts of your own in terms of, like, if you agreed with anything I said or you had any other points you wanted to talk about. I would love to reply and, see what else we've got going on that you want to talk about. And then otherwise, keep an eye out for the announcement for what day the live show in March will be.